Minister, you're welcome yet again to the House, and I welcome this report, and I read the recommendations in it, and I have a number of questions for you, and I've no doubt as a businessman you're well aware of what Senator O'Brien is after saying there about needing a licence to have a Thomas the Tank engine outside your shop in Ballymote in County Sligo, so I'm sure you know all about it. But the very first line in the advisory group's recommendation in relation to commercial rates, it states, although rates are generally a relatively small proportion of business costs for small businesses, they can be particularly burdensome for some small enterprises. Now, my experience, Minister, talking to small businesses and enterprises around the country, that rates is a huge issue. Everywhere I go, that's the main issue from a business perspective in my parts of the country, and I have called on yourself before for a national re-evaluation of rates based on the pilot scheme that operated in Dublin, where 3 local authorities benefited to the tune of a 35% reduction as a result of a review. And I do welcome one of the recommendations in the report that it says that outsourcing of valuations should be considered. And my question on that to you, Minister, bearing in mind that we need to bring them into line with current market reality, is who can these valuations now be outsourced to if we take out the Valuations Commission out of the equation? Another issue, Minister, is the whole variation of rates from one county council area to another right across the country. And I'll instance a very plain example to you. In my own area, Monksland, County Roscommon, you can throw a stone from Monksland across the River Shannon into Athlone in County Westmeath. And in Roscommon, our rate of valuation is €74.34 a square foot. And across in a thriving town like Athlone, it's €52.27. There's a difference of €22 per square foot in the rateable valuation. And it would beg the question, why would anybody want to set up business in County Roscommon when they can go across the river and set up for an awful lot less? And it's something that needs to be addressed nationally. In the report as well, it refers to a local government efficiency review group which could realise savings of €511 million per year. Now, I welcome that, and I also welcome in the recommendation that this €511 million be passed on to small businesses, let it be by way of either rate reductions or whatever, but be passed on to them in some way or other. But what I want to know, Minister, where are these savings to be found? The figure seems to be very specific. If you said 500 million, I'd say, well, you probably thought it up. But whoever come up with 511 million must know something, that there's that amount of savings out there to be achieved. So I'd appreciate if we could discuss that. As you know yourself, Minister, I'm sure you heard it in your own hometown after Christmas. You heard it during Christmas. Every business was going to close down. Small businesses were going to close down. And my own town, I know a number of pubs have closed down and small businesses. And I believe, Minister, and we spoke about this the last time you were in this House, that there is a need for a two-tier rate system. One for the blue chip companies, and you mentioned this yourself here the last time I discussed this with you, and one for the smaller businesses, as we previously discussed. Because the question is, Minister, if a small business employing one person has a rate bill of, we'll say, 4,000, and they simply cannot pay it, the books show that they cannot pay it, what is the point in undue pressure coming from the local authority to lead them to close down a business, putting either 1 or 2 people on the dole at a cost of $21,000 a year or $42,000 a year to the taxpayer? What is the logic in it? And you did mention in your own opening address joined up thinking, which is something I had said to you here the last time we were here in relation to the very same subject, because at the end of the day, we're pulling this money from one pot at all times. So there's no point in shutting down a business over 4,000 when it's going to cost us 42. In relation to encouraging new businesses to set up, I think there is a need to consider giving a rates holiday to new businesses, or else putting in a staggered payment structure at reduced levels, knowing that we also have to be careful that this cannot affect existing businesses and can't lead to displacement or undue competition. And mindful of that as well, Minister, I'm also thinking that we're doing an awful lot of talk about tourism. and how we need to promote tourism more in this country, and that we have great capabilities to do it. I come from a town where last Christmas our brand new hotel closed down, didn't open up its doors prior to Christmas because of the bad weather, put 40 people on the dole, never reopened, cost the taxpayer $840,000 a year on social welfare payments. They weren't purely because they weren't able to pay a rates bill of 40,000 and a water rates bill of 30. Again, where's the joined up thinking there? It's going to cost us in excess of 700,000 a year because nobody could see that there was logic in doing business some other way. And as you have asked for ideas again, Minister, about how do we create employment. I've said this several times in the House before, and I'm going to say it again. It's back to the theory of the back to work scheme. If it costs 21,000 a year to keep somebody on the dole, if we were to say, Minister, well, let's give 10,000 a year to an employer to take a person off the dole, we're saving 11,000 a year for that person every single year. If you were to create 100,000 jobs per year doing that, you're saving 1.1 billion on the social welfare budget, plus you're getting extra tax, PRSI, universal social charge, and every other charge that we have recently heard of. So, I mean, this is a way that we need to start thinking, Minister, because there's no other way. And I know for a fact, if you talk to the likes of Mark Fielding and these guys, they will agree with me on that you have to give inducements to get people off the dole and inducements to employers to take them on. And just finally, Minister, I want to mention NAMA, not something I know a whole pile about, but from my investigations over the Christmas, apparently NAMA are concentrating most of their business at the moment in the UK property market. I think the figure is something like 80%. And they seem to be ignoring what's going on in this country. And what is going on in this country is that there are lots of people, lots of auctioneers and estate agents out there trying to reactivate business, property market and all of that, and they're in negotiations with NAMA on for the purchase of many of their buildings. And down in rural Ireland, where buildings may not reach the same value as buildings in Dublin or over in the UK, but these auctioneers and estate agents have the I's dotted, T's crossed, everything done except for NAMA to sign off on the bottom line and say that unit is yours, and these auctioneers have been ready to set up small enterprises. They're ready to go. They're 6 months now waiting in many cases down in County Roscommon for NAMA to sign off on them, and nothing is happening. And it just begs the question from my point of view, Minister, like, why are we paying somebody €1,000 a day for 365 days of the year to run NAMA when they're actually forgetting about Ireland first? And it's something that I would hope, Minister, that you would use your influence and access to get the answers to these questions, and I welcome your response.
Thank you.